Welcome to my cellar one more time. Here we are, new administration, in the throes of an incredible pandemic. I hope you're safe. I hope all your loved ones are safe. I went out and broke my bubble today. Not today, 2 days ago. It was a considered decision. My barber had worked with his father in his father's barber shop, and his father closed the shop due to the COVID problems and that. But my barber has decided for certain friends and good customers that he'll cut in his basement, and he set up a little thing in the basement. So I'd had it. My hair was just long enough to make a little crappy ponytail and too long to do anything else with. And so I went and had about 2.5 inches of hair cut off my head, all over, and it was worth it. We were masked, and everything was good. Now, there's been a shit storm all over Facebook today about something that's going on with GaryCon. GaryCon wants people, it was a poorly worded statement, but basically they want people to register and online, if they're playing online, they want them to register online and have a video camera on. And somebody screamed, "Oh my God, they're going to vet us." And then somebody hollered about, "Oh, it's WotC driving us to 5e and woke." And it was stupid. I talked to Luke this evening along with several of the other organizers. That wasn't what it was intended to be. It was really a substitute for walking up to the desk and saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, can I have my badge?" Don't worry about it. They're not vetting it. They're not vetting. There's one person who's been banned. They know who he is. They know his ISP. It's all taken care of. No, they're not screening people to see if they're not suitable to run a game. No, it's nothing like that. So just chill, calm your jets. If it was something like that, I would have withdrawn. It's not. All right. I got a lot of nice happy birthdays. Thank you. And he said, "I just read The Empire of the Imagination by Michael Wentworth and was so pleased to come across a chapter called Kask Strength. Have you ever thought about writing a book at this time?" Well, I'd be a liar if I said no, I had never thought about it. But then I tried to think of myself, how would I possibly fill up a book? For one thing, I'm a brief writer. I always had trouble meeting word minimums. I still have trouble. Jim will ask me for, "Can you give me 2,500 words?" And I think I'm done at 2,180. And I just can't possibly squeeze another couple hundred words in there without adding what I would consider to be fluff. That's just my writing style and my own personal assessment of what I would be adding in, more words. I used to have to be, I learned to be an editor at Dragon by eliminating words and only adding them where they were absolutely necessary, and then always in the voice of the author. So no, I haven't. There's another book in process that I've just been asked if I'd like to see a first draft of the first half or whatever, and I said sure. I've been interviewed for it. Do I want to? Nah, I don't. I don't think my life's been all that, if a couple, 3 other people from the old school still alive, we all got together around, and there was some really bright interrogator / questioner, I might get involved in some kind of thing like that at some point and spin yarns and tell old tales, and what it was like way back when. Nah. And I'm gonna have to go back and reread that because I forgot there was a chapter called that. Um, have I considered doing some live streams with super chats? No, because quite frankly, I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. I know there is such a thing as a live stream. I don't know how to do it. If it's something that could be done on a high-end Zoom, yeah, I have access to that. If you're talking about a huge Q&A type of thing, I have done a few of those, but I don't know. Please elaborate on what you are referring to because I really don't have a clear understanding. Um, would the game be better without all those distracting magic items that everyone covets and their associated potential to unbalance the game? And there's another question later on that asks some of the same but takes a different approach. So I'm decided I just come to them one at a time and give each one my full attention. Um, by distracting, I'm assuming you're talking about like artifacts and super powerful stuff. I see no need to put those in. Um, later on, there's questions about a campaign, and I'll elucidate on that further at that point. But I don't just roll on tables and, oh my God, it's the Wand of Orcus or the Rod of Seven Parts, or, no. I don't see the need to just sprinkle those around. One super item, and maybe not even the superest item, that they hear a rumor about or they get hired to go investigate or whatever. Yeah, that makes for a grand epic quest that's got the potential for stuff along the way, being little accomplishments and deeds on the in the process of getting there. Um, but just having stuff sprinkled around, absolutely not, no way. Um, some great when they find a way to go steal from some bad guy or loot out of some tomb or something. Yeah, but then would I leave it in the game? No. I wouldn't cheat them out of it. They'd be amply compensated. They'd be very amply compensated. But I'm not going to leave something in that could become either go to the head of the owner, and make them start playing against type, or just so unbalance the game. There's more about that coming up later. Um, little magic now, small magic, what I call magic with a little m. Um, rings that, +1, +2, maybe +3, depending upon the ring. Rings, minor wands. Um, no, +10 Vorpal swords, but yeah, you can have plus weapons. I very often make plus weapons that aren't magical. They're just extremely well made. Maybe, but made by the dwarves, or by the gnome smiths, or whatever. Those could be artifacts in and of themselves that are not going to unbalance the game. It's only going to give one player a really cool weapon and some advantages. But little magic, light the fire, stuff like that. No, I like that. And spell magic, that's fine if you can put in the time and the chops to make it up there to use those big spells. Hey, this is fantasy, and how much you use in your campaign's up to you. Um, this next one, I believe it must be a reference to my two young players from Ireland. Can we burn it? Yeah, well, everything they came to, they wanted to see if they could burn it to get it open. And then I suggested that those wooden crates might have valuable scrolls inside, and they would all go up in flames. And so the next day they brought picks and chisels and stuff. But I salute them for their. I hope they sign up for one of my games again. I really do. They were just a boatload of fun. Um, Please tell us more of your time working with the Judges Guild. What sticks in your mind as the strangest thing that came up? What do you recall ended up becoming incorporated officially into the books? Um, I don't remember anything that we lifted or asked permission for or extracted, in any way, shape, or form. Oh, we want to make this canon. I'm certain that not just me, whose job it was to vet this stuff, but several other people there always looked through it because I passed my copies around and they came back well thumbed in some cases. Um, I don't, I cannot remember anything that we had to go, no, 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 you can't do that. There were a couple I know, but they were so minor at the time that I really don't recall. Um, I do know that when they came out with the City State of the Invincible Overlord, it just blew my socks off. It is what I'd always wanted to see somebody do. Here, hand you an enormous campaign that you can now run around in. It's a sandbox campaign in that it's a huge sandbox with lots of things to do in it. It's like saying Disneyland's a sandbox. Well, there's so much shit you can do in Disneyland or Universal Studios or wherever your favorite thing is. Cedar Point, whatever. No, so we didn't actually lift anything. There might have been something that influenced something that came out in AD&D, but I don't really remember anything too bizarre. And a couple of times when I pointed something out, it was an honest mistake on their end and just a typo or a word transposition. I enjoyed working with them. It was, read them through, understand them. Oops, did they do something that I didn't know the rules allowed? And then I might say, oh, I don't think it works this way. And they go, oh, yeah, you're right. It was very minor stuff, very, very back and forth, though it was through the mail, which tends to slow down the response time. Okay, now this is interesting in that it makes some good points, and some I may not feel are quite as good. And there's understanding players' origins and their first experience to the realm of D&D. I started with the original version. Others may want more magic per level because they cut their teeth on a later version. Too much magic is weird, overpowered, and unbalanced for me, but for the others, it is the opposite. The old way is the best way, that's in quotes. My proof is the pilgrimage and renaissance in the direction to the original. The later versions overspice the recipe. Sample them all and you'll see what I mean. All right. That's a well-stated opinion. Gives reasons for it. I happen to agree with a good deal of it, simultaneously, coincidentally. You're right. Some campaigns, and I'm going to talk about campaigns here in a few. Some campaigns are magic rich, some are magic poor, or scarce, or they have a paucity of magic. Okay. Yeah, it's the Wild Animal Sanctuary. I got the name garbled up a couple of times, but I thank everybody that contributed. I exceeded my goal. They sent me a really nice video thanking me for it, and I was just glad to do it. It's an amazing place. They have another one one in Texas, I believe. There's two locations not too far apart from each other in Colorado, and one in Texas where they've overflowed to, and they're amazing people. So I'm glad I was able to help them out. Okay, here we go, talking about artifacts again. On the topic of artifacts, I have this idea I got from an old computer RPG, Elder Scrolls Arena, though I've yet to implement it into my games. Artifacts have a sort of mystical sapience about them and have a habit of getting bored with the mortals who have them for any length of time, at which point they themselves disappear and need to be found again in some other faraway treasure hoard. I imagine famed artifacts reappearing over the ages in the hand of this or that great hero for a year or so, and then lost for decades or a century or more, only to be found again to bring great, if brief, glory to another wielder. And the next person chimed in with, good idea. And I'll be the third to say, or the second to say the same, good idea. That's a neat way to deal with artifacts. Again, it depends on at what level you consider an something to be. If it's a named artifact, yes, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant idea. If it's just something that's very powerful that you put into the campaign, either powerful or able to be amped up, well, you got to let them keep it if you put it in there. So that's a great caution to watch what you put in and what you allow to stack. Does, an armlet of speed make your staff even, you have to compute all that and figure out. You don't want to make, for the old Warner Brothers fans, you don't want to make a Tasmanian devil with weapons sticking out everywhere. I like that idea. Again, it's artifacts. And the winking in and winking out is where you get great rumors, depending upon the size of your campaign. There's another question coming up about campaigns. And I'll just, as always, I'm simply telling you how you might do it or suggesting how you might try. There is no right or wrong way. If your players keep coming back, you're doing it right. How do I feel about Bunnies and Burrows? Does a change of scope and scale create a cool setup for you? I love it. He did the first one, and then the Trolls did one that I was going to write an adventure for. It was an anthropomorphic. I wrote an anthropomorphic adventure that I'm planning to kickstart with Lloyd Metcalf. We had planned before this all went to shit. So it's been hanging fire all this time. I got a buttload of fluffing I have to do to get it finished. But I mean, the story's been done. It's been published. I've run it. In it, players get transformed. The mission remains parallel in its things to do to what's required for success. And I've run it a few times at cons to great success. Now the surprise is gone when you know this is the one where you get turned into mice. But I like the fact that Dennis, and I really like Dennis. I consider him to be a dear friend. I like his dropping down because rabbits can't count for crap. Now, don't quote me on the exact numbers, but there's either 3 away or many, or I mean, they have very rudimentary explanatory skills in many regards that are what we normally rely on playing human PCs. I think that's wonderful. I like the fact that you have to think in a different set of brain cells. Same thing, Dennis did it first, and then the trolls, and then I just decided to do it when I saw this in a certain set of figures that got released by Reaper. I just ran with it, made up my own backstories, changed the figures around, had somebody else draw them for me, and they all have backstories. And someday I might write a kid's book called The Heroes of the Forest Floor that involve these mice and what they do living in the huge bramble thicket that they live in. But anyway, boy, did I get off the topic there. Now, artifacts. Bunnies and Burrows. That's where I was. Now, I think the game's brilliant. I think anything that makes you think in a different perspective, whether it's, a sci-fi or dystopian game that has screwed up gravity. Now you're bouncing or you're slogging. Anything that makes you think in another aspect. I think the challenges of gamers a neat idea and shouldn't be avoided. What are your thoughts about high-level characters building strongholds and raising armies? That's not new. That's what we were doing in 1975 and 1976. When a character got too big to play, meaning it wasn't as much fun, we retired him. There's rules in the third book in the back about what it costs to build a castle, the elements of the castle, what it costs to raise 20 crossbowmen or whatever. Pardon me, I'm drying out. That was the goal originally. Make a character so wonderful that he went out, carved his own barony, duchy, whatever, the wilderness on his own. And then, yes, those guys factored into our big chainmail mass games. They would bring their retinue, bring their army. So when we had those big mass battles, sure, you brought your own guys. You were entitled to bring that many guys with you. So it's nothing new, and I still think it's a worthy goal. Reach whatever level and you're beginning to feel ennui setting in every time, and nope, time to retire that guy and go back and face the struggle. That's why I always think you should have a stable of characters at different levels of development to go back and recharge yourself. And when this character you're playing now can't just wade into a storm of slinging rocks, has to duck and dodge. I think it's a great idea. It's a good way to get them out of the campaign too. Now, campaigns, we're coming to that again. What is the best way to stay open to players' input while sticking to your overarching plot? Or arcing, I'm not sure how. Anyway, or is it better to be totally flexible in order to try to incorporate new elements suggested by play as much as possible? Could you put a percentage on a DMB versus PCs? No, I couldn't. My first caution would be don't develop the whole thing. Now, I stumbled onto this method because I didn't know any better when I developed the first one down at Carbondale. I set up several levels of a dungeon to explore, some monsters to kill, and some clues they might or might not find, and let them loose. And depending upon what they found or how they interpreted it, literally, if you use this as a flow chart coming down from the top, if they went right, that was fine, because I had several ideas in my head already. Didn't matter where I put them. I could put them on the right, I could put them on the left in the flow chart. Didn't matter. I just had vague ideas. In the first one of mine, they found a jade cube, and it had mystical symbols on it, that matched to in a scroll that they had found elsewhere. And so they learned about this mad genius and his laboratory that then became the focal point of everything else that happened in the Carbondale adventure and campaign. But along the way, stuff just developed as the adventure happened. I would strew the field with hooks and ideas and run with whatever one they picked up. I understand not everybody is that flexible, but I think you should work at being that flexible, because I really think you'll develop a better campaign, because everybody will feel they had a piece of it, and they'll know what character they'll play in the book that's written about it. If you don't want them going down certain alleys, getting evil, getting vindictive, something like that, you can handle that. Divine intervention, divine penalties, humbling episodes. You can deal with that kind of stuff. You can't be a martinet and only let them play one way. But if they are going somewhere that you feel might become distasteful, this is a part about knowing your group again, then you don't go that way. In this case, oh, that line on the flow chart has a break in it. Doesn't go anywhere. I believe you do have that responsibility to be a ethical guide. And the guide is solely in whatever vibe your group plays in. If they play, stick up their butt paladin lawful good, or neutral, I'll go which way the wind blows or the water flows, you know that now, and you let your campaign go in that manner. You can't be a moralist and tell them they can't do it. You can be a vindictive deity that they're supposedly affiliated with, and start cursing them, or making things harder to heal or whatever. You can do that as a DM, and if you do it well, nobody will figure out what you're doing. And you're not being dictatorial. You're not being didactic about it. It's your job to make the best story you can, and as a writer, it's your privilege to choose where it goes. But if you know your players are going to want it to go this way, why wouldn't you? Make it the best this way you can. Tim, I've heard you say you don't like PC monsters. I noticed, though, that you wrote an adventure for an Iron Wind Miniatures Kickstarter stretch where the PCs are orcs and goblins. Have you gone back on allowing monster PCs? Or are orcs and goblins a special case? Or was the game system a special case? Okay, what's my current feeling? That whole thing was the dumbest promise I ever made. They were a few days away from finishing their Kickstarter. And it was a day of Cincy Con held up in northern Butler County, a gorgeous day. And I drove up and got in the proper frame of mind on the way up and was talking to the Iron guys. And I named a number that was a good deal away from where they currently were and above what they were aiming at. And that if they hit that, I'd write an adventure for them. They were kicking off the Chaos Wars. And I would end up doing all the things that I did do for the Chaos Wars. They took a picture that day, posted it on Facebook, and hit what I thought was preposterous goal in like 4 days. And so I found myself, all right, I think some of the most dynamic characters in the Chaos Wars figures are the orcs and the goblins. And so I talked with Mike at Iron Wind, and I said, I think it'd be fun to get your evil on. What do you guys think? So I wrote the miniatures setup of which battles are this is the big army conclusion, and I wrote the adventure that once the armies have moved past you, that you sneak through and you go off this way and you go to loot this tomb, and they were orcs and goblins because they were I was writing from that point. Now the rules themselves are very well balanced. I didn't have anything to do with tinkering with the rules. That's all Iron Wind. I may have played them way back when. I don't recall specifically. But I said, okay, let's get your evil on. And so they had merchant caravans to ambush, but the merchant caravans were only carrying costly brocaded fabrics, which had no immediate value to them. And they had some neutral nasties to fool around with. And then they had some good nasties when they got to the dwarven tomb they were supposed to loot. So it was just a chance to be bad guys. Because, hey, bad guys get missions too. After I read the books, Orcs and Dwarves, and the ones about that ride the feral hogs, well, that was afterwards. But, orcs, but I have their story tool as orcs, not as PCs. No, 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 no. They function fine within their own society. They're not all mindless brutes, but no. I saw something on Facebook about a half orc, half dwarf. I got to figure that both of those populations would have killed that hybrid as an abomination. But hey, okay, play whatever fantasy you want. If you're not going to pay attention to the tenets of the races you're fooling with, okay. Am I interested in producing a card game version of Wheel of Blame, and what mechanic would I suggest to convert it to a card game? The element I think would really make it a card game is the player contributions. This must be one of my former players. Having a couple cards each, one word concept, and the Russian roulette element of trying to play that card. No. No, the Wheel of Blame. I've been modifying the Wheel of Blame lately. I added the element of total darkness, and I've decided to add the element of underground, and make it much more fantastical than I've been doing before. Before it's been a thinking thing. Well, this is going to be a thinking and a clever and a fighting and don't get killed thing. I'm going to amp it up. I've been having fun doing it this way, but I'm going to make it tougher. I can't think of a way to make it into a card game. And I can't think of anything else to talk about tonight. Again, don't freak out about the Gary Con thing. It's just a new way they're trying to do registration for doing a virtual con from the get-go. Last year was a conversion at the last minute. This year they're trying to get on top of it at the beginning. I'm running several games at Gary Con. I'm also running a couple of games at Total Con in February. And I'm going to be running some more games for North Texas in the first week of June. And yep, I'll probably be running the Wheel of Blame. There you get to play for free, unless it's a charity game like one of the ones that I told TotalCon they could designate. You got to pay them some money to play in it, and you can bet they're going to get a hell of an adventure because the money's going to a charity. And if GaryCon wants to do the same thing, they can. I don't care. Otherwise, it's just, whatever your admission fee was to play. I don't charge anything extra for convention games. However, if you want to have some good times in this time of stay the hell home, I'll run Wheel of Blames anytime I can line up 4 to 7 players that want to play and fork me a little cash or other considerations. And on that, somebody asked me about the Dodatagobi thing again. Dodatagobi is a Cherokee word that is a plural goodbye. Dodatagobi. I never push the right button. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Tight with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.